Hello everybody, my name is Henry Tenby and welcome to this edition of Model Moment. We're going to be doing something very interesting and exciting and dear to my heart today. It's a show on the models produced by Brian Austria-Tomkins and his company Executive Display Models that was active in the 1970s through to the late 1990s. Out of their showroom at the Sheraton Skyline Hotel, Bath Road at Heathrow Airport. I know many of you have been to that showroom over the decades and have marveled at the beautiful models on display and for sale at that showroom. And I am one of you. I used to go to that showroom back in the late 80s and early 1990s when I graduated from various universities that I attended, and I hadn't found my career job yet, and income was not as robust as I had hoped. And I wasn't able to afford the models that were on offer, but of course, I always went to have a look, talk to Brian, and savor the beauty of his work. So this presentation is a celebration of those models. So let me first start by saying thank you very much to all of you that are repeat visitors. I really appreciate that. And I know our numbers are slowly increasing in the number of views. So the word must be getting out. And I'm glad that more people are coming to this channel to enjoy these model videos. So thank you very much for that. There's a button in the lower right-hand corner. It is a red subscribe button. So if you go ahead and click that, you will get a notification of every time we post a new video on our channel. So please do that now and you will never miss one of these videos. So I'd like to start by thanking everybody for helping me with this channel by leaving comments. There are a lot of comments that have been left in previous shows and I do respond to all of the comments. So thank you all for your comments. That gives me great enjoyment to see what people have to say and how people are enjoying these videos and relating to the models in their collection and those models they've seen over the decades. So that's really awesome to see. That's terrific. For those of you that don't know me, I am a lifelong collector of travel agent models. Well, almost lifelong. Certainly, I've been seriously collecting travel agent models since the late 1980s. And I am also an author. I've written a number of books on aviation and aviation photography and model collecting. And my most recent book is actually the Aircraft Display Model Collector, Investor, and Appraisal Guide. And it's a detailed 162-page all-color book, which basically is a summary of all the main model makers. And we address the values of the models produced by each of the lines covered in the book. And one of those companies that is very much featured in my book is Executive Display Models. So I do encourage you to check out my book. It's available on my website, henrytenby.com, and it may be a reference that will be useful for you in your collecting of display models. So Brian Austria-Tomkins, I'll give you some background history on him and his company. He was the penultimate aviation enthusiast entrepreneur. He started, I believe, in the late 1960s with another fellow by the name of Colin Ballantyne, and they produced aviation enthusiast books. They had an aviation hobby shop near Heathrow Airport, and they were partners. And some of you may remember these publications. They're profile publications from the mid-1970s that both of these two individuals published. And in the back pages of these airliner profile publications, they had advertisements for books. And of course, they also had advertisements for display models. And we're talking about 1975, 76, in that time frame. And they had, large models. These are 1/44th scale, 1/72nd scale. And at the time, these models were priced in the 50 to 60 to 70 pound range. So we're talking, 50 years ago. And I think it's safe to say that prices have gone up tenfold since the mid-1970s. But be that as it may, a 1/100 scale DC-863 model, which we have here, was 40 pounds. We have a 1/100th DC-10 model, which was 45 pounds. And then we have an assortment of 1/72nd Trident, 1/172nd A300. Those were both 39 pounds. There's a 1/72nd Concorde for 40 pounds. He has a 1/72nd VC-10 available in Gulf Air livery for 39 pounds. 1/72nd TWA Connie, 39 pounds. 1/72nd Bristol Britannia from 69 pounds. So if we factor these numbers up by tenfold, they were very expensive models back then. 700 pounds in today's dollars, so we're talking $1,000 US in today's dollars for that model. So their business was producing these specialized publications, and they also produced executive display models. They described them as aircraft display models. And even in, well, some of you may remember this publication. It was also their publication. It's called World Airline Fleet News. And this particular issue is from 1977. And they have a whole page dedicated to aircraft display models. It says here, professional travel agent display models used for travel agencies, fully assembled. And they had various models, 1/72nd 707s for 39 pounds, 1/72nd DC-863, now 59 pounds, 1/100 TriStar, 55 pounds, 1/50th 737 Saudia colors for 66 pounds. So a lot of us became introduced to the world of travel agent models and the ability to purchase travel agent models by seeing these magazines for sale in our local hobby shops. I'm born and raised in Vancouver, Canada, and there were hobby shops that had this magazine for sale. And of course, I was just intrigued. I marveled at the ads just as much as I marveled at the airline news that was contained in these publications. And the seed was planted that I would one day want to have travel agent models. That would be something I would collect in later years. And of course, my wishes came true. And thanks to Brian Austria-Tomkins and Colin Ballantyne, we now have, 50 years down the road, we have an appreciation for their incredible work and their contributions to the aviation hobbies that so many of us are interested in today. So what can we say about Brian Austria-Tomkins? His showroom was at as I said earlier, it was at a very luxurious hotel at Heathrow Airport, where he had very affluent customers that came through the doors. Often these were rich Saudi and Middle East oil sheikhs that had no ends of supply to their resources, and they could afford to purchase models of their aircraft. And other businessmen, many from the Middle East, that were his customers over the decades. And of course, there were North American and British aviation model collectors like ourselves that probably didn't have quite the budgets that our Middle Eastern compatriots had at the time, but we all shared the same passion. And in about 1995, Brian Austria-Tomkins came out with what he called the British Classics range, and that's what this model is. These were 1/100th one-piece fiberglass productions that were produced in very limited quantities. It's understood from advertisements at the time that 20 of each particular livery and model were produced, and they were priced at 200 pounds in 1995. So that's 25 years ago. We can safely conclude that the cost of index of living has gone up 100% since then. So what was $200 in 1990, or 200 pounds in 1995 would easily command the purchasing power of double. Call it 400 pounds today, so $500 to $600 US. If these models were offered today, the prices of them brand new from Brian Austria-Tomkins, if he was still in business, would be in the region of at least $500 US. Remember, each one of these models is handmade. Fiberglass is laid out by hand. They have to be sanded, polished, painted, primed, deckled. The decals have to be produced, clear coated. They came, of course, with a beautiful stand. And that all adds up, and it is a significant price. Now, I have something to share with you. This is an original decal sheet that I have for the Air AS57 Elizabethan. And as I'm going to bring it in close so you can see that, it says that 25 sheets of these decals were printed in 1995. That's when these models were produced. Most of them were produced in 95. It says July 1995, 25 sheets. So they produced 25 sheets to make 20 models, which means this particular sheet is one of 5 that didn't get used. So if only 20 of these were made, it's a small number, a really small number actually, and it makes them, in my opinion, very nice to have. They're quite collectible, and they are models that I really love, and I'm going to enjoy showing you this model. So let's start with this. This is the Elizabethan ALZN AS57. British European Airways used this aircraft as a DC-3 replacement. They went into service, I believe, in the early 1950s and remained in service with BEA up until the late 50s, and then they were then sold off to the second-hand charter operators, such as, there were many of them actually, Dan Air, Air. There were several of them, and they were based in the UK, and they were pretty much all retired by the late 1960s. But this model represents the delivery scheme of the British European Airways ambassador circa 1952-53. And they've done a beautiful job. Look at the wing detail on that. The model only measures 8 or 9 inches nose to tail. The wingspan is about 1 foot long, but the quality of finish is absolutely stupendous, actually. I'm very happy to own this model. I'd like to see what this Air model would look like. I've never actually seen one in the flesh. I've never even seen a photo of one actually, but the decals look very cool, that's for sure. And the props are made of I believe it's cast soft metal, lead. They're extremely fragile. On some of my other models, they've actually started to, I don't know how, but they're on the verge of breaking at the join lines with the hubs. So you have to be extremely careful with the props. And if they break, it's not the end of the world. You can crazy glue the props back into position, but of course you prefer not to. Look at the wings. Brian had these nice wing detail decals, which adds to the model. Tail, very nice, with the Royal Mail insignia on the back. And of course, there we go, at the bottom of each model, we've got the famous sticker indicating that the model is made by Executive Display Models. So yeah, this model was £200 when it was offered for sale in the mid-1990s. Now back to my book, I'll show you, I'll set this aside here. This is page 85 of my book. I actually, where my finger's tapping, that is the brochure that Brian Austria-Tomkins released in various magazines in the mid-1990s to promote these models. And in it, he actually indicates all the lines that were, or all the aircraft type that were offered in this particular British Classic Airliner series. And it did include, just so we have it on the record here, the TriStar. They were £225. We've got the Argosy, BEA Red Square livery. We've got the BAC 111, Britannia 100 and 300. So far, they're all £199. Comet 4, Comet 4B, and Comet 4C in BOAC, BEA, and Dan Air liveries. We've got the Trident 1 and 3 in BEA Northteast and BEA Union Jack livery. Super VC10 in BOAC and East African Airways livery. Oh, the East African Airway livery would be my favorite for sure. We've got the Vanguard in BEA and Air Canada livery, also at $199. And we've got the Viscount, the 1/100 scale Viscount. I've never seen one of those models, and it was offered in BEA, Cambrian, and Northeast livery. But Brian also offered, in the same range, a British Classics military offering. And they were priced also at £199, and it included the Vulcan, Victor, and the Britannia that was offered in RAF colors. So it was quite an interesting range. As I said, 20 of each model and livery were produced, which makes it a very small production run. And because you don't see too many of these available, they don't show up too often, most people that own them do tend to keep them. So that's a good sign if you're a model collector. But if you want to get them, like me, it's not so good. If you have any of these models that you'd like to sell or trade, please get in contact with me. I'd love to hear from you. So let's move on with the next model in this series that I'm going to share with you. This, as for size reference, this is the BOAC Britannia, Oscar Victor Mike, and you can see the size difference between the Elizabethan and the Britannia. It's, close, almost double the size. It's really quite a lot bigger aircraft, the Britannia, than the Elizabethan, but the price was the same. The models were each £199, call it £200. So yeah, the Britannia is a nice model. Again, the props are made of cast or spun aluminum, I guess, super fragile. If you bend them, they will bend back easily, but you only get a couple bends on them. Like if it bends out, you can bend it once. If you have to bend it twice, it's probably going to break off. So you're going to be back to the crazy glue. So you want to avoid bending these props. But look, he did a nice job. He painted the de-ice gloves on them, which I find kind of cool. And you've got the yellow tips and wing surfaces. Well, also what I like about the Britannia is he's got that, I don't know what it's called, but it's a separate paint, different paint color that wraps around the nacelles. Maybe it's a firewall between the engine and the wing, perhaps. So, but it looks very cool and it looks very authentic. Tops of the wings have some nice detail. We've got some spoilers, we've got flaps, we've got our exhaust ports, we've got above wing registration, all looking very cool. The level of workmanship is really, really fantastic. Again, look at the lines, they're just perfect. The wings aren't sagging. You've got the right dihedral there. And even, I don't know if you can see it, but the wingtip on the Britannia had this little flare up. Call them mini winglets from the 1950s. The British knew what they were doing when it came to designing aircraft. So I'll try and show that to you even better. But yeah, there is a mini winglet here. So Bristol was half a century or 3/4 of a century ahead of the world when it came to winglet design and the aerodynamic efficiencies of curving the wingtips up. That's kind of neat to see. Oh yeah, look at the back. Looks good. This model, for some reason, it's very, very, very slightly starting to fade or tint yellow, but it doesn't bother me. I don't know if the camera can actually pick it up, but the Elizabethan has absolutely no fade. The Britannia has some yellowing, but again, it is what it is, and it's certainly not going to be a detracting factor in my opinion. But I love this model, so cool. Would have been neat if you would have done Canadian Pacific. That would have been my next livery, or even Cathay Pacific, because I believe they did paint up one aircraft in Cathay Pacific livery as a demo. Might have been leased from BOAC, I'm not sure, or I can't remember. But that would be fabulous to see BOAC livery on this model. So I'll just get the next model for our presentation. And that is, of course, also a Bristol Britannia. And that is one of my favorite airline liveries on a Britannia. So classic, so British Eagle. November Charlie Foxtrot. This airplane, as I was showing you earlier, the props are very fragile, and I actually did suffer a prop blade through a blade, luckily not into the side of the aircraft. We're able to repair that, and we'll do so. But I did want to show you that these are susceptible to breakage. So yeah, this is a gorgeous, gorgeous model. Color scheme is fantastic. You can't see it. There's a very, 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 very slight yellowing to the paint. Absolutely nothing serious. I still rate this model a 9.8 out of 10. There's no damage to the physical body of the model at all. And the professional finish is second to none. Brian's tradesman that he used were absolute masters of their trade. These are silk screen decals. As I showed you, these are silk screen decals. But for some of the executive display models that were produced as one-offs, executive display model painters were skilled at hand painting. So they could actually sit down and paint the livery, they could paint the titles, they could paint the windows, all by hand. And that's the old window sign glass painting trade, of course, which has been replaced by laser cut decals, and it's a trade from the 1950s. That's today, in the year 2021, long gone. But Brian had access to these tradesmen who could produce this kind of work, and those models really are works of art. We'll give you the underside view. Fabulous. Again, we've got the spoilers on the wings. We've got the flaps, and on the underside of the model, we've got the sticker, executive display models, with the phone number right there. And actually, in the bottom of this particular stand, we have a much larger decal or sticker promoting executive display models and their location at the Sheraton Skyline Hotel, Bath Road, Heathrow. That's kind of neat. I didn't notice that before. Sheraton Skyline Hotel, Bath Road, Hayes. So we all know where that is. It's right adjacent to the runway, the north side runway at Heathrow. And if you stay at that hotel, you'll want to get a room on the 3rd or 4th floor facing the runway, and you probably won't leave your room because the view is absolutely fantastic. Of course, if your wife is with you, you probably won't want to spend the entire day in the room. But if it's a business trip and you're relaxing, recovering, I know of no better location to spend a day recharging the batteries, soaking up the action at Heathrow. So yeah, this is just a absolutely gorgeous model. New frontier. It's kind of neat. The glare shield on the British Eagle Britannia was green. I didn't know that, not black. But yeah, that kind of sets the model apart from the crowd for sure. But really nice model. Again, 200 pounds when these were offered brand new in 1995. It's my understanding that these were all pretty sold out within a year or two. So if you were looking for one of these by the late 90s, you'd have to go to somebody who already owned one and try to convince them to sell it to you. So we'll move on to the final model of this presentation, which is a jet. And here we have the final model of this presentation on executive display models. Look at that, isn't that a stunner? It is Northteast, or BKS, British Air Services, as they were known before they rebranded. This scheme dates from about 1971-72, and Northeast was merged into British Airways when the nationalized carrier emerged in the British airline industry in 1973-1974. British European Airways and all of these second-level airlines, domestic airlines, merged into British Airways. So Northeast was based in, if I'm not mistaken, up in Newcastle, and they operated an all-British built fleet. Of course, what else? And kudos to them for that. They had Viscounts, they had AS-57s, or Elizabethans, I should say. They had Tridents. This color scheme, which was also on the Viscounts, is absolutely fantastic. Look at that. It is, of course, borrowing from the U.S. Northeast Airlines because they were also using a predominantly yellow color scheme introduced in the late 1960s. So there's some inspiration there for sure. But British Air Services operated these on shuttle flights between Heathrow and Newcastle and other points in the UK. And they were certainly a very distinctive liveried airline before they were merged into British Airways. But this model's gorgeous. It measures about a foot long with a similar wingspan. What I like about these models is that the exhausts are cast pewter and they're very nice and accurate. And that's a very nice touch. And on the tops of the engines, we have engine reverse thrust grills. and on the bottom side, we've got the grills. Look at that. We've also got the sticker on the bottom. So just an overall beautiful presentation. We've got a exhaust there, which is cool. Let's see if I can get this close for you to have a look. We've got nice turbine detail in those engines. And the colors are just beautiful. This model's in mint condition. And it's a pride of my collection for sure. Again, if you have any of these models, these British models from Brian Austria-Tomkins of executive display models that you're interested in selling, let me know. I am a cash buyer for all kinds of aircraft display models. You can contact me at my email address. That's shown on the screen now. Whether you have one model or a large number of models, I would be very interested in hearing from you and would be willing to consider your purchases of your models. So thank you very much for that. Also, I trade models as well, and I operate the aircraftdisplaymodels.com website where you can find many photos of models in my collection and in the collections of other serious collectors throughout the world. So you might want to check that out as well. It's aircraftdisplaymodels.com. So what else can I say? We're getting to the end of this video presentation. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this show, as always, I'd ask if you would give a 2 double solid thumbs up. Please click the thumbs up and leave comments. I love seeing your comments, no matter how short or in-depth they are. I really enjoy reading your comments about the videos, and I like to hear what models you have, what models you'd like. If you have models that you want to sell or trade, or you're commenting on the aircraft depicted in the models, it's all great stuff. So thank you so very much for that. And last but not least, again, I encourage you to check out my book if you haven't already done so. You can get details on the henrytenby.com website. And until next time, thank you so very much for tuning into this video. I'm wishing everybody happy collecting, and we'll see everybody on the next episode.